Hi everyone, good to be with you. So we're going to be doing questions and insights. We have a list of volunteers who have offered themselves, and this space is to learn. It's simultaneously a way to receive benefit and guidance. But for everyone here, this is an opportunity to deepen our astrological knowledge. So even if you're not picked, I definitely invite everyone to engage and ask questions if you want as we go along, so we can all really learn something from this. I'm not going to follow any particular order. I'm just going to invite whoever feels, and this is those who already told Linda that they wanted to volunteer. So whoever feels like they're ready and they're called with a real question, something that's inside, speak up and we'll look at your chart.
Hi, Ari. I'll jump right in there.
Great. Who is this?
Okay.
Oh, Carly. Hi, Carly.
I'll give Linda a moment to bring my chart up. But I've been having some real difficulties sleeping and just grounding myself in general. I'm getting thrown off quite easily. I think it's to do with Uranus just entering my 12th house and opposing Pluto. But yeah, like I literally didn't sleep a wink last night, and it happens more and more often. My mind just won't close off, and so it's throwing me off through the day, struggling to get routines down, etc. And I'm open to any insight that may come to you.
Great. So let me ask you a couple of questions first. Tell me a little bit about the work you're doing right now, and just like what you're engaged with in life.
Sure. So I am giving astrology readings, probably half a dozen a week, and I volunteer on a suicide helpline and also at like a secondhand retail store.
Did you say poetry readings or astrology readings?
Astrology.
Okay, great. All right, and Linda's texted me. Is my screen full, or should I enlarge the PDF? Can you see the?
Ari Moshe, just click on the screen and press Control on your keyboard, then L.
Got it.
L for Linda. Okay. There it is. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Carly. So I'm just going to take a moment and tune into your chart and just feel into this. So this is a very appropriate question. We're looking at the question that you're speaking to, Carly, is about rest. And I asked you, what are you involved in? One, just because I want to get a sense of you. And I just saw the South Node Capricorn and Saturn squaring the nodes. So there's an immediate sense of what is your relationship to the whole idea of roles and defining yourself according to needing to do something. So I'll just share a couple thoughts on this. The essence of this would definitely be forgiveness and relinquishing yourself of any kind of conditioning that says I need to do more, an underlying sense of there's something inherently, there's something that I feel shameful or guilty around that lends towards always feeling that there's something more that I have to make up. This is your moon in Pisces in the 10th house squaring that Neptune, and that moon, of course, rules that Cancer South Node. What this speaks to is a dissolving of how you've structured your own identity within time and space, moon, Pisces, 10th house, and where there has been a value and this pressure, 10th house, towards needing to work, needing to do a good job, internalized judgment that can be very harsh on yourself and thus repressive, 10th house, to the emotional body. And, you know, we could always look into deeper why the guilt, but in the Capricorn 10th house archetype, and this is good for everyone to tune into, it's very, very often that we feel this sense of needing to be punished for a feeling of having done something wrong or having acted out of alignment. And it's not always necessarily a conscious orientation, but it's something that we often do to ourselves in denying ourselves the permission to live in harmony with time and space, almost as if we need to make up for something. So this piece around forgiveness, and especially with Neptune in the 7th house, ultimately it's, you don't have to be what other people are wanting you to be. There's perhaps a lot more space and freedom for you in a shift of orientation that says rest and replenishment and ease. 2nd house Cancer, right? That's my highest priority. So you ask about, I haven't been resting, and I look at this chart and I would want to offer, maybe at the core, you get to tell yourself you're allowed to. So it's not so much like, what do I do differently, but a greater self-compassion and allowing. How does that sit for you?
Yeah, as well. It's as if, like, if I don't have the rest, I physically really feel thrown out. Like I can't even communicate the same. I'm a bit shaky. There's just a real lack of grounding, and it may be, and I may do that due to the punishment that you were talking about. Like, I always want to feel at my best, but I so often don't. And then I think, well, I can't get that done until I feel my best. And I just feel like I'm holding myself back. And I think that might be that punishment on a subconscious level that you were referring to. It's definitely something for me to delve into.
Yeah. And, you know, when we have Saturn square in the nodes, it really brings up a deeply internalized sense of where we feel validated or rewarded for doing the right thing. And all the strong 5th house and that 9th house south node in the in Capricorn, sorry, in the 8th house rather. It's a lot of all of your own creative life force being oriented towards sharing yourself. I mean, 8th house is all about giving, it's letting go of ourselves, and where we can also lose our soul, where we can get entrapped in power dynamics and identifying with I'm secure here. Thus, we're addicted or we're attached to doing the right thing or being socially accepted or gaining the approval, and maybe things to think about around when you're a child, Capricorn, Cancer stuff. Where did you see the imprints around being accepted, being loved, being rewarded, all those things? So yeah, it's great to see Cancer as well, right on the North Node, also squaring Saturn. I think this really speaks strongly to a journey deeper into self-respect and self-care, and unraveling the conditioning that might prevent that. Do you have any other thoughts or questions you want to speak to with this?
Oh, that was beautiful, and plenty. I'll be listening back.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Ari.
much.
You're welcome. Who wants to go next?
I will.
Hi, James.
Hi.
Let's pull up your chart. Thank you, Linda, for putting this together and making it alphabetical order. Okay. What's up?
Well, you know, I was allowing the question to rise up, and you know, within the connection of us all, like my only question is really just what do you see whenever you you know, within this, you know, connection that we all hold, within, you know, my personal self. I'm just open to whatever it is that you see within all of this. And that's really my question, is what do you see?
Well, I haven't looked at your chart yet, but just seeing you, I see obviously sweetness, right? A gentle being. So I'm curious to know, what are you wanting in life? What's unfolding? Give me a little bit, and then I can just see how service wants to happen.
What do I want?
I like to look at the person, not the chart, to understand. And the chart
Yeah.
context.
Well, you know, honestly, like, I don't want anything. I just, I love everything right now, and the only thing that I really want is more of what I already have. And so, I guess, like, you know, all I want is your perspective. That's all.
Well, my perspective is that's beautiful. keep on doing that. And so I'll look at your chart a little bit and I'll see if there's something, if it occurs to me, because I'm not going to force it.
Yeah, of course.
You know, you got that Pisces North Node in the 3rd house. Chiron and Gemini in the 7th squaring that. You also got the Uranus and Capricorn squaring that. Lots of strong 1st house energy. What I'm called to say is share yourself. I don't know what you're doing or what your trajectory in life is, but share yourself with others. Share your thoughts, share your words, share your writing, make yourself available to hold counsel with others. Any questions or anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, that's what I'm focused on is, you know, doing the same thing and seeing the divine presence. And I'm doing healing work, and I'm an astrologer, and all those other things that, you know, all those other adjectives. But mostly it's about healing and, you know, speaking to the life within others. And so, yeah, I mean, that's perfect what you said. And I cherish that and I hold on to it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And then, thank you, James. All right, who's next?
I can go.
Hello.
Hi,
Who's talking?
Camellia.
Hi, Camellia.
Hi, Ari.
Hijk. So you're after. There you go. Okay, there you are.
Yeah. um, so I was thinking a lot before, and I still don't know if I can formulate the question, because there were too many. But one of the things that I wanted to focus about, I know that the transits are not here, but it's I'm gonna have Chiron squaring my Venus. It's coming closer, and at the same time, I will have Uranus trining it, and um, it's always been about the how I express my needs and how I value them, and which I don't, and all this, and relationships, and how they are really complicated. And recently, I've been finally realizing consciously, not just like spots of consciousness here and there, but how what type of relationships I'm attracting, which is basically people that are not totally available. But and I realize how much I have this fear of intimacy, just because I feel entrapment, and I guess it's an issue with boundaries, of course. But I feel like this issue will be really calling for some resolution, to the point where it's possible, of course, especially with the transits coming. And I mean, I'm not asking for prognosis in any way, but I'm asking for your insight about I, how do I deal with this? I know that the square, I mean, there's it's important. Like, the square is not going to come from Pluto, from Neptune, or from another planet. It's coming. It's going to be the question is coming from Chiron, and then again at the same time, there's going to be this trine with Uranus. So I know that I have to approach the issue of how I state my boundaries, but I don't know what's going to be the core. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense.
I'm hearing you. Thank you. Let me take a moment and tune into your chart and just feel
Okay.
it. Camelia, will you tell me a little bit about just what you're doing in the world right now and just what you're involved in, maybe like what kind of work you do and things like that, just so I have a little bit of a sense of.
I a long time ago, when I was not living in United States, I was a psychologist. Then I came here. Lots of things went wrong in terms of where my career was going. So, and then while I was in wondering about, I discovered the evolutionary astrology, and then after that, DMP. So I've been training with Patricia. I'm sorry.
After that, you discovered what? I missed that.
The Patricia's work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing for the last.
Everyone knows.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years, but not for a living. Of course, I do have a everyday job that pays the bills. But this has been ever since Chiron started squaring the nodes, maybe a year or a year and a half ago. I got this huge crisis of what am I doing? Why am I not doing the right thing? And it was part of this. Who am I? And how am I expressing myself? So shortly after, I found a place where I can practice, and everything was really nice. Ever since, not that I can afford to do this on an everyday basis, but I feel extremely happy when I do this work, and that's why I don't think I just continue that path. So it's I kind of finally got onto the right path, but I think the issue with the relationships is coming to the fore, and
okay, so I'm gonna open my mouth and let some things come out. There's and the way I do this, everyone, is I speak more from a right brain place, and then as I go longer afterwards, I'll give the astrological qualifiers.
Sure.
There is a very powerful theme for you in unraveling different identities and roles that you've played that restrict your own authentic way of living, your own authentic way of expressing yourself according to ideas and constructs and beliefs that are acceptable, that fit in, that belong. Part of this journey for you is actually, on the one hand, learning how to really trust your intuition. And in that sense, there's a reclaiming of this piece where at some point you began to feel that it's not safe to surrender, that it's not safe to trust, that you need to create a story. Because if you don't, there's a memory of literally being alone, like losing your tribe, losing your people, not having the support and not fitting and not belonging. But what's come as a sacrifice is suppressing yourself for the sake of fitting into something that is safe, that is secure, that provides a sense of belonging and acceptance. Part of your journey in a really powerful way is being willing to experience what it's like in life where you don't have a context for who you are. And in that sense, what becomes available is a whole lot of energy. There's anger, there's rage in there that I can feel in you. And it's the net result of having denied yourself your own desires, your own wants. So when it comes to relationships, so we're looking at Mars retrograde in Aries opposing Uranus. In combination, it's a lot of yang energy manifesting through the vehicles of relationship, 7th house Libra, and the idea of partners that don't stay, don't want to commit, but also where there's a fear of entrapment within you. What this reflects in a very important way is where there's that masculine energy and that freedom to act upon your desires. It's very strong here, and the retrograde speaks to a part of this life journey. 1 second. I think some kid just knocked on my hotel door. Okay. A part of this life journey is, I don't know what I was going to say. Retrograde, actually becoming self-reflective of why is it hard for me to act? Why is it hard for me to speak for what I want, to be responsive? And it's kind of taking you into this big place of, oh, there's fear. Like there's a fundamental fear of really setting out on my own. The core dynamic here that really speaks to the main theme is this Pluto squaring the nodes, Pluto and Libra in the 12th house squaring the nodes. The North node is sad, and it's ruled by Jupiter in the 4th house, which is in conjunct to Saturn and Cancer in the 9th house. This right there speaks to, on the one hand, the suppression of your own truth, your own nature, what's indigenous and authentic for you. Cancer in the 9th, Jupiter in the 4th, it's the same kind of theme around emotional authenticity. And that Aquarius piece is to really be yourself, mean don't worry about the belonging, don't worry about the fitting in. And there's some piece for you where it's literally been like, and this is just like a story that archetypally reflects what you've experienced. This is a metaphor, but it could be literal. Being with a tribe, being with a community, perhaps a nomadic tribe, like Jupiter in the forest, a group of people, and studying, learning, being a part of a very rich kind of culture, and there being something that separated you from that. With all this 4th house Cancer, 9th house Jupiter stuff, it really speaks to indigenous tribes, nomadic tribes, things like that. Ways of living where home was connected to natural law, to nature, and also to community, Aquarius. And there was some sort of separation, something that left you in this deep place of, I don't know where I am. And the whole 3rd house, 9th house confusion is trying to grab onto ideas, trying to make sense of it logically. This is a classical example of where, in order to find context and meaning in your life, you've learned to compensate by going into the mind, by going into a place where you can somehow logically contrive and figure out what to believe in. And that's often the case when we see Sag in the 3rd or Gemini in the 9th. What's suppressed is your intuition. Saturn in the 9th, Jupiter in the 4th, in conjunct that. This natural knowing, and it's an emotional intuition. It's about being honest. So there's a validation for you. There's a place of peace and forgiveness in actually finding out what's true for you, in actually finding out what it feels like to live at home. And you have the moon in Aries in the 6th house squaring that. Your soul has so much energy. So you mentioned you love doing this work, but you have a more conventional job right now. What I would encourage you to do, let me just find the words for this. I'm not ever one to say leave or whatever, because I don't know anything about that. But it's to start to connect with your inspiration. And there's nothing wrong with letting yourself dream. There's nothing wrong at all with letting yourself think about how good it would feel to make all the money you need doing the work you love. And to start exploring that, you're shifting your energy, you're shifting your orientation to one of intuition, inspiration based, not one of I'm lost, I need to figure out what to do based, because bringing your energy back into yourself is claiming this very strong warrior type aspect of you that is in you. It's been alive in the past. It's reconnecting to it, reclaiming it. And of course, from that place, you'll be able to resonate with partners that will want to stay with you. I mean, the whole idea around relationship where the other, the masculine in this case, reflects this archetype of coming and going. It's quick, it's not staying. That's that Aries energy. And it's reflecting to you where there's something that you're wanting to claim and hold on to and access within yourself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Do you have any questions on this? Does that feel good for you?
Yes, I have to let it in a little bit. Yeah, but thank you.
Thank you, Kelia. Okay, who's next?
Hi, Ari.
Hi, Celie.
Hi, Ari. I heard somebody else chime in as well, so I didn't want to overlap with them.
I saw your hand first, so let's do that.
Okay. Well, let's see. Let me tap into today and a couple of weeks ago. I'm now coming into a place of honoring my power and my gift publicly. And I'm walking through lifetimes of memories of being killed for speaking truth or helping or sharing or caring or loving. Now, I professionally have worked for over 30 years as a intuitive empath, a healer, and within closed quarters. But my heart's desire has always been to shine bright. And I've always made myself small to protect myself. Although I couldn't always contain my brightness, even though I would try to, so that I would fit in. That's kind of behind me. But what's happening right now is that I'm stepping forward, and without effort, the energy is present, the people are present, and I can share the gift of love from a place of complete darkness that I've moved through. So that's, I guess, what I'd like to kind of tap into, if you can.
Well, as I'm listening to you, it feels like you're connected to this. So I'm wondering if you can really maybe refine or direct where I can speak to for you.
Okay, from an astrological standpoint, just EA, the squared nodes, and then the yod that siphons into my Pluto between the sextiled Saturn and Mercury.
Did you say sixth house Saturn?
No, the sextile between the eighth house Saturn and the Mercury into the yod into Pluto. I've always tried to understand that, don't get it. I mean, internally I might, but astrologically I don't know. And then the squared nodes by the moon. And Neptune. Yeah, pretty interesting.
You know. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment and breathe it in.
Okay.
And a reminder to everyone that as I work with each person, please do feel free to jump in if you have a question. That'll make it really fun. Even more fun. Okay. See, I'm just first to speak to and validate and reflect everything that Suli was saying. Notice we have the South Node in Aquarius in the 8th house, conjunct Saturn, and North Node in Leo in the 2nd. We have the Moon squaring the nodes in Taurus in the 11th house. Again, repeating the same archetype. This is a very fixed chart, fixed houses, fixed signs. Neptune in Scorpio in the 5th house, also squaring the nodes, opposing the moon. This is a situation where, as Suli said, this soul has been killed, 8th house, Aquarius persecuted for being who she is. The Neptune in the 5th house in Scorpio on one level reflects an innocence, and we can think of it as this orientation towards giving and sharing, expressing love and beauty, and being seen, 5th house equaling South Node Saturn, 8th house, judgment, repression, persecution, death. And that 2nd house Leo, of course, reflects this piece around self-esteem, self-confidence. I'm content and whole within my own beauty. But the shadow of that Leo in the 2nd house within these signatures, because we have the moon in Taurus in the 11th house, which is, again, the trauma of that can be, I don't belong, I don't fit into community, I'm inherently different. So the shadow of that Leo in the 2nd can very much be a stubborn self-reliance, a prideful, like, okay, fine, I will just be myself and I don't need to fit in. So a big thing that Celia is cultivating on her journey is a consciousness that is not defined by belonging or not belonging. is not defined by a part of or separate from. That's a way of really integrating these powerful fixed energies. So moon in Taurus in the 11th, anything in the 11th house, we're liberating from. So it's the need to define oneself according to fitting in into any kind of community or context. And that Taurus moon on the one hand can be stubborn about, I'll just be myself, but actually emotionally dissociated. Or it can be very much attached to trying to create an idea or identity of belonging. So it's just such a powerful signature and work that we're doing in this lifetime, Celia, with truly letting go of needing to know who you are, needing to define yourself according to anything that comes or goes. And of course, this is evolution. So this is inherently a process that unfolds in time. It's like not to be expected that you're suddenly, and this could happen, but it's more rare that suddenly you're free from all identification with the comings and goings. Biggest piece that I would offer, and I'll come to your specific question with the signatures, is the importance of you have the Aries sun in the 10th house ruling that north node. So that Aries sun is working within the structures of time and space, building your career, making yourself available, disseminating your wisdom, your light, your love out into the world. And I'm seeing all kinds of projects and creative ventures. There's like no end to what you can be creating. It's like infinite creative energy. Pluto in Virgo in the 3rd house. And you spoke about the inconjunctity with Saturn and Mercury. So I'm just going to get into that. And it's opposite Chiron in the 9th as well. Two things come to mind. One is taking it step by step. Obviously, there's a lot to share and to communicate and to offer in terms of your own expertise and practice and being in service with others, including writing and explaining these more metaphysical concepts for other people. But one, there's a piece of actually going slow and noticing the state of consciousness in the mind that can be hasty. Aries, Mercury in the 10th is a lesson around not just rushing, building a framework of knowledge and understanding. Otherwise, at Virgo retrograde, Pluto in the 3rd will make mistakes. And so it's noticing the state of consciousness is, am I grasping at knowledge? Also, because of how much persecution there's been for you, there's a part of you that is actually really deeply wanting to express yourself. There's a part of you that's really, it could become a compulsion to share, to express ideas and knowledge, and to reflect your ideas, because there's a sense that there's something important that wants to be shared. Noticing that vibration with these signatures, and the Saturn piece and the 10th house piece really speaks to, and the 8th house, penetrating, going slower, actually getting to the bottom line and allowing stillness and a sense of purpose to inspire your writing, your communication, your work. And what you face in that is, well, if I don't say something, I'm going to lose the opportunity. I'm not going to be seen. I'm not going to be respected. I'm not going to make it there. And that's a good thing to notice, meaning that's exactly what that yod represents, where it can very much reflect a consciousness of haste and concern with loss. And you don't want to be coming from that place. So the practice is being with that emotional energy. And, you know, a good practice for 10th house Mercury Aries is navigating and observing the playing field. Like, okay, there's something that wants to be articulated and expressed. I'm going to wait. I'm going to feel it out and let it build. It's actually kind of tantric when you bring it to that Pluto in the 8th house stuff. It's let the energy build. Let it come together and feel it. Let it move you so that you're navigating it very consciously and clearly. That's a mastery path that you're on. And I think naturally in your own evolutionary trajectory, there's a lot of very useful, helpful, brilliant articulation that might want to come through you. This is the kind of thing where you have people writing books about like tracking their past lifetimes. And then, I mean, I can see why you're resonant with evolutionary astrology and past life regression stuff. It just, your mind wants to get all of it. And to see, you know, Aquarius in the 8th house is liberating from the seeming immediacy of life and death. And Saturn, letting the gravity of your consciousness, developing a gravity within your consciousness to orient towards your eternal timeless soul. So not seeing yourself right now according to the temporal identity, but actually getting this soul manifesting. That Mercury and that Pluto thing is teach it, communicate it, talk about it, articulate it. And there's brilliant, fascinating insights that will be forever coming through you. Do you have any questions or want to speak to any of this?
I feel that I'm coming into the mastery. And as beautiful as it is from the inside, as magnificent as it is, I am walking through the fear of the 8th. Really walking through that fear.
What would you call that? Like, what is that fear for you? How would you describe it?
At this point, my soul has let me know that there's no choice. My personality's died so many times, and that I must do this.
Yeah.
And the fear is not even an emotion, and it's not even in the mind, because I've worked on those areas. It's down to the cellular particle genetic lineage that is what I'm breaking through with in terms of consciousness, piercing this last little piece of freedom.
Yeah, I understand that very much.
Yeah, that last little piece. And I am taking my steps. Last year, I took my first step. I said, no more. 30 years of my clients, bye. No more this. 30 deaths later, bye. And I'm moving forward. And I'm actually, apart from walking through the fear, I am feeling so good to simply just be right now and have the light and the mystery move through me. So
I want to speak a little bit just to the nature of evolution relative to the 8th house archetype for those who have planets in the 8th house or have Pluto somewhere in your chart. There is this experience of fear that so beautifully, as Celia expressed, in my experience, isn't something that you could even consciously identify as like, I'm afraid of this or I'm afraid of that. It's pointing to the very vibrational nature of simple resistance. And it comes down to just the core energy of choice, where on a soul level, we choose to evolve or not evolve. And it simplifies itself to that point at different moments in our life. And that vibrational sense of fear is what I know myself to be. And this is particularly true with Aquarius, where the essence of Aquarius is freedom from the known. So there's nothing to hold on to in terms of context. And evolution can literally feel like consciously letting everything that we've known go, because a part of us, and that's the eternal part of us, knows that we have to. And that word have to is a Scorpio Pluto 8th house word. We have to. We have no choice. And well, our only choice is to resist, which doesn't go well. So thank you so much, Celie, for sharing.
Oh, thank you, Moshe. Beautiful. Thank you.
Great to see you.
You too.
Okay, who's next?
I can go next. Anya?
Ari,
Hello?
this is it.
I can go next. Can you hear me?
Anya, yes, I hear you.
Yes. Hi, Ari.
Hi.
Yes, I'm ready.
What's your question?
Oh, my question is, wow, it feels like I'm on a very big crossroad at the moment, and lots of death is happening, lots of rebirth. And I would like to know, where am I in my journey?
How is this rebirth and death manifesting for you?
It just feels like everything is falling apart. I don't know where to be. So I'm in Australia now. I've been dealing a lot with my family last year, which is quite intense, like my brother. So, you know, I'm very much tied into my family dynamic, fourth house, south node, and feel I don't know, I have to liberate myself from that. But I'm still very much tied into that. So I feel like, should I stay in Australia? Should I go back to Germany?
Okay.
But this is the moment I'm in. And there's something around, how can I jump? How can I leap into my north node?
Okay, beautiful. So I'm just tuning into your chart here. North node's in the 10th house in Aries. That's very much about purpose, direction, strength, confidence. Mars with Neptune back in the 4th house in Scorpio. Got a good old Virgo stellium. What is your work? Like, tell me a little bit about what you do. And
I'm a transpersonal counselor. I do holotropic breathwork,
oh, cool.
and I really work with all the states of consciousness.
Okay, great. And you're asking about, how do you know where to go, where to move?
Yeah. I feel like I need to go back to Europe. So I've been to Prague last year. I went to the conference where Grof were, and so there is an opening for doing work around psychedelic, bridging the psychedelic research with the healing modalities. So I feel very, very drawn to that.
And then what about the other option?
Pardon me?
The other option, other location.
Well, to be in Australia, and I feel like I'm stuck here. I'm stuck. I drown in Australia.
What kind of answer what kind of answer would you give yourself? I'll play with you, but I'm just called to ask, like, what would you tell yourself?
What I call myself.
What would you tell yourself? What advice might you give yourself in this case?
Jump.
Yeah.
Jump.
What would that look like? How would you jump? To try to make it accessible.
It's kind of like facing the fear.
Okay.
And do the things which challenge me the most.
Yeah, I agree. So the permission that I want to give you is, and maybe it's just helpful to hear this. Facing your fears and following a deeper call of spirit, because your Mars is right there with Neptune. And it's in the 4th house. You know, Mars and Neptune is leaving the womb. It's like Mars is actually, you know, Pisces is that circle, or it's the wholeness, and Mars is that arrow. One way to think of it, it's literally like the energy of Aries is individuation leaving from this merging bliss of oneness. And you have this right there with Neptune. And so this is your, metaphorically, but literally, you're leaving your roots, 4th house, and you're expressing, you're moving out into the world on your own. So this is about establishing an identity and a security that trusts your connection to source. And what comes to me to say is, you're worthy. Because that's the core of it. This is you defining home for yourself, you finding home for yourself. Neptune in Scorpio in the 4th house with Mars there can be a timidness in really expressing your own drive, your own movement, and adopting to the emotional environment around you. And one of the deepest expressions of Neptune anywhere is getting out of that state of letting the environment define us and truly understanding what co-creation is. So being at home isn't just a passive state of allowing. Being at home is actually for you connecting with your soul. Like, I'm at home because I'm connected with my infinite source. So I'm at home where I am right now, but what makes it real is I'm choosing, I'm present, I'm engaging. And this would be healing any latent patterns around, Venus and Virgo ruling that south node in the 4th house. And this whole stellium with Virgo leading to Pluto in the second, there can be an inertia and a form of laziness via self-denial and self-doubt. Second house Virgo, not moving, not giving and sharing all the abundant resources that you have, second house, because of mental excuses of self-doubt, Virgo. And that Venus in Virgo, all kinds of ways of judging yourself, devaluing your worth and defining yourself according to maybe what the environment others are saying of you, what your home is, what others are wanting of you. There can be a pattern of degradation in defining yourself according to caring for others, but that you have Venus retrograde in Virgo in the first house. So in many ways, it's very, very important for you that you actually become more introspective and reflective, retrograde, about how you're using your life force energy, first house, in service. You're reconnecting to a valuing of self, to a self relationship that is more honoring and respectable to the gifts that you've been given. And Pluto rules that Neptune in the fourth. There's so much powerful energy here that says value yourself, trust the abundance that you have, and see where you might feel guilt. Like, I can't leave, they need me. There's something there for you, and really opening your heart to that place where you don't want to abandon anyone. Very often, where we have Neptune is where there's also a karmic reality around escapism, right? So Neptune in the fourth house can be having separated, having not been available for family in the past. There can be a guilt around that. And so we don't alleviate that guilt by denying our purpose and staying in the same place. We alleviate that guilt by kind of locating the illusion that resulted in that in the first place. Like, oh, I didn't understand that I'm giving and I'm loving and I'm at home in my conscious choice and connection with source, and I'm not abandoning anyone. It feels like that intuitively, that you've had these lives of either running away literally or metaphorically. And metaphorically, what comes to me, it's maybe not literally running away, but the energy of becoming so internal within yourself that you dissociate and you just numb out. So you're not really available anymore, which interestingly creates a sense of, since I'm not available, I feel like I have to give more because I'm not really showing up fully. And that's what happens when you're making yourself be where you are not really called. So really being at home within yourself. Okay, I'll stop there. Do you have any questions or want to speak to any of this?
Wow, yeah, I really like what you said last with that being not available, numbing out. That resonates strongly. Also, you know, like the guilt thing around the family and the mother. And so I did family constellation. I'm stuck in between my father and my mother, my father and my brother. So I have to get out of that and walk towards my life and my soul.
And a helpful way to think of it, that it's just a really loving and forgiving orientation, is as I individuate and follow my soul's calling, I show up in service to my family in the greatest way possible. Even if you're not there, there's great importance for you in healing and dissolving any ideas of separation, that you following your calling is by any means an abandoning of what others need of you, what your family needs of you. Because the opposite is true. You actualizing and showing up fully in the world, one, in the most direct way, it makes you more alive. So any interaction you do have with your family actually becomes more potent and real. Like when your kundalini is flowing, interactions have a lot more effect, a lot more meaning. And two, just in virtue of you liberating it, of course, because there's no separation, it really brings so much light and healing to your own family. It opens up energy that's actually being held right now. It frees up everyone.
Yeah, and I've been there last year, so totally it's been happening, and I feel very grateful for that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Anya.
so much.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
You know, considering what was just, you know, discussed, this really like stirs up something in me that I was, you know, contemplating today about the idea of like, when do we become, you know, that which we have created an ideal for? And, I would just like your thoughts about that, because I was thinking about how everything is like the eternal moment. And so it's like either yes or no. And it's like, am I this now? But how do you see that? And even in like with astrology, because, we do predictive work and stuff, and just some of your thoughts on it.
Great. Let me get some water and then I'll respond. And I could also hear Linda thinking, so I just want, after this, we'll do the break, I imagine. So just, you don't have to interrupt me to say that, Linda, because I know you're probably thinking that. So James, I want to hear your question, and just, can you speak a little more about it? I haven't fully grasped it.
Sure. What I was referring to is like how, in the context of the idea of infinity or eternity, if anything is ever happening, then it has to be happening right now. And so my question is, what are your thoughts about how we all sometimes get into the realm of thinking, oh, I must be something, rather than looking at ourselves and saying, I am that here right now, and looking at ourselves and saying, how am I that? And how do you bring that into astrology versus the context of like prediction? Since, technically, if everything is actually, infinite, therefore it exists always at once, then perhaps it's more about like capturing the light of what that is to us right now. And what are your thoughts?
Okay, let me take a moment and tune in. So I'm Mercury, Neptune, you're Pisces in the third. So I'm translating. It's a little abstract for me, so I'm just gonna speak and we'll see if this flows with where you're intending. I find there's truth to we already are what we are. And this isn't a personality thing. It's like an inherent truth to the soul. And most of what's true is not something that we can define or understand within the constructs of time and space, but our consciousness is very conditioned by time and space. So we so often think of it in terms of something's going to happen or becoming something. There's a deeper wisdom and empowerment that comes in realizing right now I am this. And this is a Uranian piece in terms of with Uranus, there's no time, there's no development. It's just the realization of our inherent soul individuality. And it doesn't operate within the constructs. It's vibrational essence. And it's the same essence that comes in and out of each incarnation. And it's a matter of actually realizing I am this. I am now.
Right.
And then anything that we're wanting to become simply a part of how consciousness seems to be like doing this game within time and space. So we have the Saturn piece, which is where we're working within form, within definition, within bodies. And most people become so defined by the form, by the Saturn, that they lose touch with what they already are. And then often live so much of their life acting and pretending and believing that they're not what they are and trying to find it.
Right.
And of course, Neptune in its deepest, and Neptune's beyond Uranus. So Neptune speaks to this profound good news, which is there is never any kind of separation. The only thing that creates separation is our orientation towards there being something yet unresolved. But the way I work with astrology and what I find is most helpful is not misapplying that idea, because that can become so unhelpful. If a person just ends up, great, I am already arrived, and they end up sitting and doing nothing, where they're actually disconnected from a real evolutionary calling for movement. Working within the karmic parameters that is relevant for us is simply a matter of wisdom and self-knowledge and self-honesty. So for me, for example, I have Neptune, Mercury, Jupiter conjunction. So just, Neptune is the oneness, Mercury, Jupiter, communication, truth, understanding, all in Sag. So I've had a lot of lifetimes in my understanding in monasteries, also in ascetic, where home, fourth house, was universal and not located anywhere in particular. And so I can spiritualize and say, yeah, I'm home everywhere. But then there's also this very imminent experience of wanting to be touched, wanting nourishment, wanting a warm meal. And from the point of view of universal consciousness that's already complete and whole, it's very hard to relate to that sometimes. Like, whoa, I mean, it's not hard to relate, but that can be the delusion of, well, I don't need nourishment because I'm already whole and everything that I need is now. The mastery of working within limitations and limitlessness to me is allowing what infinite and undefined and unbound to nurture and address and give care to what is limited. Even if we intellectually know that there are no real limits, there's great compassion in realizing that we are actually bound by however our consciousness is currently identified. And so for me personally to accept, oh wow, it'd be really nice to have a home, to feel nurtured and safe. It's letting myself connect to, I am home, I am one, I am unified, and I'm also including the most tender and vulnerable and delicate parts of myself within that story, and there's no conflict there. So I'm not even sure if I strayed from your question or not. Did I speak at all to what you're asking?
Well, you actually spoke to some of the thoughts that I've had, and that's good. And I've actually, considered all of those things too, and very literally things that you actually said, because like depending on house system, like I relate to the fourth house a lot, and that was one of the things I said. I was like, literally, if you know that your home is within, this, then you're always home. But you're right. It's not about detaching from everything. It's about fully accepting everything. And
Yeah.
so, like, I was just like thinking about like, the idea of like eternity, being in like the moment. But then also like, appreciating fully each moment. And perhaps that's where that realization comes full circle, is in saying, hey, I'm already that, but how do I see it right now?
Yeah. And Anya, this is just coming back to the idea of Neptune in the fourth. It's a beautiful expression of, there's a quote by Mary where she says something like, it's the will of divine love to manifest itself in all the crevices and nooks of the human need. And to actually say what's needed right now. And the deepest teaching, when we integrate all of our being, the Saturn dimensional time-space experience and the Neptune infinite experience, when we come into a full understanding of this moment, we find that working within parameters and time and space doesn't mean we're defined by it. So we can be an infinite being, giving care and presence and attention to the parameters and the boundaries and respecting the boundaries. And in fact, to me, that's the highest expression of the divine, one that can also operate and give respect and care to boundaries and limitations. It's so universal that even that doesn't take it away. Even boundaries does not detract from infinity. So I think we should probably take a break here. Linda, is that accurate? Yeah, tape it. Let me know if you're recording.
Recording now.
Okay, great. So EA Zoom meeting, questions and insights, intermission break with musical guest Ari Moshe Wolfe. Okay. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. The way is eternal. The way is inside. The way is this moment, and by the way we can't hide. For The essence of spirit is intimacy, one in this moment and one that I be, one in this moment with my family. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. The way is forgiving, forgiving your hearts. The way is a living, and life is an art. For the essence of breathing is all that I be, singing and dancing for eternity. Singing and dancing with my family. Weyana, weyana, weyana yo. 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 All right, now I'll take it back.
Bravo, beautiful. Thank you.
So we can pause the recording now, Linda, because I'm going to go and move my body for a moment. All right, so here's another little song before this next segment. The Hebrew is Ani Ma'amin, which means I have faith. Ani Ma'amin, 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 Ani Ma'amin. With no condition at all. With no condition at all. I have faith. Oh, I have faith. With no condition at all. Let me hear a piano solo. Whoever's doing that. Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin. Who is playing the piano? Marty, yeah, of course. Thank you. Aw. Okay, everyone, welcome back. So Linda told me that there maybe are a couple people that need to go. So if that's you, speak up now and you'll go next. Make sure you unmute yourself though.
Ari, you have such beautiful eyes. Thank you.
Thanks, Seely.
You're welcome.
All right, so I guess the people who have to go next aren't here. So if you just want to go, if you're called to go, speak up.
I'm ready to go.
Okay, Cameron.
I guess I'll start off with I was hearing James talk, and something he was saying was really resonating with me. And I like had so many questions like this morning, and then I felt like I was in a space of like everything is okay and I feel good and just asking for insight in general. But then Celie started talking, and I really resonated with that too, about her speaking her truth and then being afraid of persecution. And both of those people had like a lot of signatures that I had.
Yeah.
So that answered a lot of questions that I've had within myself too as well. So then I just started looking at my chart for a second and wondering if there's any way that you could tune into the 21-degree mark, because I have Ceres there, Juno, and then my Venus retrograde is there. And that's always been really curious to me. So if there's any way that you can tap into that, or if I need to say more, just let me know.
Okay. So Ceres in Gemini retrograde in the 6th, in conjunct to both. It's a yod. Okay, you got a 21-degree yod. Juno in Scorpio in the 11th with Pluto. Venus retro in Capricorn in the 1st. What feels a little more enlivening for me is a question. But then it's kind of like pulling out information from just my left brain, which is not as fun. So if you want to like lead me into a question or just something I can kind of connect with.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just talk about what's recently been happening for me.
Okay.
So the day before the eclipse happened, okay, so I got someone pregnant back when I was in college. This was like 6 years ago. And there was some unresolved issues going on with that. And so I was at work and I was talking to somebody and I was speaking with this girl and she said something. And when she said it, it wasn't the way she said it or anything. It reminded me of the girl that I had conceived with, basically. And there was no correlation at all, you know, as far as my understanding goes. And then she left. And then the very next person that walked into the room had the same facial features as her. So it like struck me as really profound that happened. So later that night, I was going to a gathering because I was speaking the next day, and it was like a gathering. We were just going to do a meditation and stuff. And the girl called me, and she said, "I need to see you." And she lives in Canada, and I was just like, "Okay, you need to come see me because what happened earlier that day." So she came, and I was already speaking with someone I was exclusive, kind of in a relationship, but not. It was an open relationship. So I was in a relationship with someone. So this girl coming from Canada, that was really conflicting for the girl that I'm like in a relationship with. But I told her as soon as it happened, I called her and I let her know what was happening and that it was an issue that I feel like I needed to resolve. And she was really upset about it, but I had to stay true to myself and what I was feeling. So yeah, she came in town and we like pretty much worked through all that stuff. Pretty much like as far as the abortion went, because she had an abortion. So we worked through all that stuff. And it was one of the first times that I've been very present emotionally, but also I had like the Aquarian clarity, because a lot of times I would either be emotional or I would be detached and clear. But this was one of the first times that I was like in it, emotional, and clear at the same time. So that, it was really interesting. I mean, that was a lot. I don't know if that helps or not, but I mean, even if you could just tune into that too as well. I mean, any insight is.
Let me see where this wants to go. Yeah, so the piece that comes up for me is this is actually a really beautiful example in healing for you. In this journey of taking responsibility, and part of what Venus retrograde here, again, ruled by Saturn, this massive stellium in Capricorn, the first house with Saturn there, speaks to, on the one hand, the karma of having a lot of energy, acting, and that, you know, first house is the penis. It's that pure yang masculine drive. In Capricorn is where we learn the effects of our actions. You got Mars right there leading the way, and then the wild horse of Sagittarius on the ascendant. This is a very strong masculine sexual energy. And it's also clear from your chart with that Uranus signature there and that connected to the North Node in Aquarius. And one second, where's your Jupiter again? Right there on the descendant. It's also really clear, and we spoke about this last time, where there has been a lot of trauma and persecution, and your work, your direction, your motion, first house being cut off short, Mars, Uranus. So you're learning how to come to terms with your masculine energy, which is that energy that's protecting something, it's doing something, it's intending, it's willing something noble and purposeful in the world. And it's neither reckless with it, nor is it overly controlling and fearful. What you're learning is there is consciously working with time in the ways that I need to. Oh, what, I'm getting a message. Oh, when I have the window over the shared application, does that mean you can't see the shared app? Like when I have this over, can you not see the screen right now because of this?
No, we can see it. I can see it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, just continue. That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Who's writing to me, please move this window away from the shared application? Like I'm getting a message on my screen. Well, as long as everyone can see it, I'm not worried.
Yeah, we're not really sure why that comes up. That's just something new that's happening in Zoom. So if you
okay, it's a Zoom thing.
Yeah.
Great. So and that the need for freedom, your life's purpose, and you're not being defined or grounded by these Capricorn heavy responsibilities of these limiting restrictions that basically confine you to responsibilities that feels like it's limiting you from the necessary freedom and forward motion that your soul needs. And this Venus retrograde in part speaks strongly to you becoming self-reflective of how you're sharing your energy in relationship, and you're actually becoming a lot more independent, a lot more self-responsible and self-contained. And Venus retrograde anywhere becomes more and more oriented towards the inner aspects of Venus, the inner relationship to self as a primary basis relative to perhaps past patterns of becoming overly involved in the outer relationship. And so there's a great growth for you in really knowing yourself. Venus in Capricorn in the first is, what are my desires? How am I acting upon my desires? How am I communicating? What kind of consent and agreements am I creating in my relationships? It's understanding the effects of your actions. So the way I see it is your soul's basically set up a structure so that you're not creating a karmic reality of limiting yourself to a world of relationship that is actually inhibiting the necessary freedom that you need to follow your soul path. And it's also a learning of a deep respect for the feminine. It's learning this deeper respect respect for how to use your masculine in Cancer, which also rules your ascendant retrograde in the 7th house, opposing all of your Mars, Capricorn stuff. That's basically this point of masculine integration. I am free, I am independent, I am sovereign, and I don't have to run away from you. Jupiter and Cancer in the 7th, I can empathize. I can feel you. I can feel my connection. I'm growing and learning and appreciating my connection with you. So your capacity to actually be in a really beautiful, yummy relationship with the feminine and your own needs, Cancer, your own internal space, and to share that with others, and simultaneously really being grounded and connected to your own sense of sovereignty and freedom, and knowing when to separate, knowing when to say, okay, it's time to really nurture energetic sovereignty so that your relationships are in balance and are in harmony. So the 21 piece, Juno up there with Pluto, with that in conjunct with Ceres and Venus. Let me just tune into that. Two things that come to mind. One is, like you notice, bringing to completion any relationships that carry unresolved trauma and seeing through it completely. And that's a part of what this manifests, is actually a reliving and a reconnecting to where there's been entrapment in the past via relationships. And that 11th house, Juno with Pluto, ultimately speaks to the possibility of sharing a tantric path with what I would say would be like a soul, like a divine soul friend lover, where there's an actual path of growth to connect with the deeper current of power that exists within each soul through a very mature and self-trusting, honest friendship with other souls. And it doesn't necessarily have to be defined by any particular construct. However, this Venus piece strongly speaks to the importance of not getting stuck in the whole relationship reality to the point where it's taking away and distracting you from your own path. And I forgot the second piece I was going to say. Anyway, do you have any questions on that or want to speak to that at all?
No, that sounds really on point. It's just, I don't know. It's in some sense, which I've learned to trust myself so much. Is I understand my chart really, really well for, like, you know, I guess I would call it like a lack, kind of, but not even really. A lack of technical knowing. But like, it's just like but even like we were talking about last time, my South Node is conjunct a lot of my things. It's like I've already been doing this. I can feel it because.
Of course, yeah. I mean, Sun on the North Node in Aquarius. This is not new for you.
Right, and also there's an asteroid that correlates to being an astrologer and an astronomer too, and it's conjunct my Sun and my North Node too. So
there you go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I feel that all the way.
Great, cool. Thanks, Cameron.
Appreciate it.
Who's next? I know we have a whole lot of volunteer charts. If no one's next, then I'll just sing.
We do have
Hi, Maury. I'll go.
Okay, great.
Who's speaking?
Hi. Can
Hi.
you hear me okay?
Yes, who is this?
Regina.
Hi, Regina. And no pressure, by the way. I hope no one's feeling pressured to go. So if you're called to, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, actually, so my question is really centered around my Saturn return. And during that time, like, I experienced an identity loss and a complete collapse of my belief systems. And as a result of that, it's kind of like I lost the purpose, meaning, and direction. And up until my Saturn return, I had derived like the meaning and purpose through seeing, like, through helping others and through like my creativity. And I guess that was pretty much linked to my self-image, which was my ego, and that's how I identified myself. And I would say that I grew up basically just being a pawn, in a sense, and I had a lot of distorted beliefs around unconditional love, and those type of things. I really I completely lacked boundaries. In fact, I didn't even realize that it was actually a real thing, um, at all. So, and that was a really hard thing for me to move through. And I really came to realize a lot of my issues around the codependency due to that, as the result of the collapse. And I've done tremendous amounts of inner work, because of this. Um, and then there was an expansion of my consciousness where I realized that basically I am co-creator of my reality. But it's almost like because I had previously derived my sense of meaning through the distortions and my self-image, it feels like I'm stuck almost in a void, and there's nothing that's really come along to replace it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm just in this void, and I can't move forward, and there's nothing that's really come along. And I guess what I'm really wanting to say is that I'm wanting to really just reconnect with my joy. I want to authentically connect from a place that doesn't require anything other than just existing in that space. There's no hidden motivations, or needs, or I'm not trying to actually gain a sense of myself through anything external, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely does. Yeah, I really hear that.
Okay.
And it feels like the exhaustion is where all of that was linked to identity. So
Yes.
the space of just living in joy,
Right.
living authentically hasn't been good enough. And so what you're speaking to is astrologically so resonant archetypally with this Neptunian experience of this indefinite period of meaninglessness. There's nothing that grabs you because, and I like how you said it, nothing's replaced the old paradigm yet.
Right.
I wouldn't want to say much to that other than you get it. I honor it. If anything, the only thing that I would want to add is, and I know that you see this already, the only thing that's shifting inside of us is the impulse towards resistance, the impulse towards trying to find a sense of meaning. And there's actually something that opens up, because the thing about Neptune is that the infinite doesn't make a show of itself. It doesn't have a context or a meaning, or it's not special or not special. It's just reality is so what it is that it has no agenda to make itself apparent to us, but it's already there. So there's something when we actually just decide, oh, I guess this is it. There's something about dropping in. I want to connect with it a little more first. A lot of souls experience what you're speaking about as the dark night, or it's a lot of suffering because there's nothing to grab onto. Because you're aware, the torture of it isn't as present because you're not seeking and grasping for some kind of meaning. But something that I find is that the thing that actually opens up in you really starting to understand that you are co-creating this reality is the realization that there's just moving from here. Nothing's actually going to change. And it's that mental shift. It's that little bit of a pivot.
Right.
Orientation of oh, I get to do what I want to do when I want to do it. There's and just being okay with that. So there's a relinquishing of the need to, or waiting or hoping or expecting something's going to give value and meaning. And in your chart, it's so clear that there's been so much for you of defining yourself according to something that is very, such strong spiritual development, that all that South Node in the 11th, the Moon and Neptune, you spiritualize your identity. You've learned to transcend and evolve and think in much higher terms. And that Jupiter Uranus, it feels very much like a lot of lifetimes in just very much higher realms, greater spiritual thinking. And yet what you're doing is you're liberating from all of that. So Uranus in the 10th house. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually during all of that, I've had like a lot of past life themes come up as well. Um, and some of them had to do with secret societies, like where I was part of like groups, and then like I was betrayed and murdered. And then there were the themes like several of the, the martyr, savior, sacrifice, um, type themes. And then also like I realized that in association with that, like I have a fear, where it's almost, I can't really make the connection yet, but there's a fear around like I feel an incredible sense of responsibility for any type of advice or like wisdom that I share with anyone. And it's almost like I don't want to, because I'm not really sure, where that fear is connected to exactly, but it's there. And yeah, it's just this really overwhelming sense of just this responsibility that I feel, because I take the power of knowledge and words very seriously, um, and helping others very seriously in that sense. But it's
Thank you.
almost, go ahead.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because that gives me a little bit of a sense of like just what's beyond this empty null vista that you're exploring right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just for everyone who's listening, secret societies, 11th house, trauma, persecution, even roles in the past where you have been a teacher, things like that. Betrayal, Scorpio, 9th house, Saturn with Pluto. There's so much for you around having been so oriented to knowing and finding and living your truth and being a part of these communities, cultural societies, 10th house, 11th house community, Uranus in the 10th house, that were removed from the world, Sagittarius, up in the mountain, these different spiritual groups.
Yes.
And there's been so much persecution. And that big potent theme that comes up here is relative to your role, Saturn, as a spiritual teacher, as a spiritual authority. And so the guilt and the fear and the hesitation that you hold around that is a very good thing to listen to on the one hand, because of course, it makes you aware of the karmic effects that giving advice or having answers for people does. And the thing that you're liberating from is you're locating a truth that's rooted in direct experience. So the authority that you're claiming isn't a philosophy, isn't a cosmology, isn't something that fits into any kind of society or culture or religious or spiritual path or teacher. Even if you might have some connections to some of them, it's really grounded in your own discipline, developed self-connection to inner knowing. Like the discipline on your path is not about a particular version. It's really about cultivating trust of your own direct knowing. Thus, the thing that's taking you beyond this threshold, this place of nothing's calling you, it's sort of empty and meaningless, is getting into that fear. Because this is actually where there's a calling for you to step into your awakeness. It's realizing, okay, nothing is going to happen, and this next moment in me creating my life is acknowledging I'm not going to be able to move forward unless I claim self-confidence and self-trust. It's one of those things where, like, if you're going to jump off of a cliff to another cliff and there's like a big drop in between, you're going to have to do a big running part and trust yourself and just go for it entirely. It's like half-fast won't work.
Right.
So it's a choice. I have wisdom, I have knowledge, I know the truth, and I'm going to trust my compassion and love, because you have it. That moon, Neptune, there's so much love for humanity and for people and just caring about people. So there's a calling for you to step into that. And Saturn says you don't have to get ahead of yourself. You don't have to make yourself something that you're not. But there would be, let me find the right words for you. It's uncomfortable for you, but there's a lot of strength and value in you practicing thinking and talking about yourself from the perspective of, I know, I understand, I get it, I've arrived. And holding that vibration when you're present with other people, because it's true. And this is, as you abide in that, I just feel for you that it's going to open up so much more space to share and to realize, oh, I know how to hold this space and I don't have to worry about doing it wrong or making a mistake. I'll keep it there in this moment. You have Mars in Aries opposite that. That's where the recklessness and the speaking out and maybe being too hasty in your action. And there's simply no way around it other than opening the door. What kind of work do you do?
Actually, I do not hold a job at the moment. I just take care of my two sons. One is 8 and the other is 7 months old. So yeah, I just kind of take care of them. And I've dealt with health issues since my Saturn return. That's kind of also kept me from moving forward. I think it might have to do a little bit with maybe the transiting Pluto in my 12th house, because I really haven't been able to get any kind of diagnosis. It's been pretty much of like a mystery thing with like nobody can really say what it is. But I did get diagnosed with panic disorder, where I was actually having like panic attacks, like severely, like 10 to 15 a day, starting, during my Saturn return. And so I've had to deal quite a bit with the panic disorder and the anxiety issues that I was having, as far as that. But yeah, I'm not currently working right now.
Great, and you're supported for that. You don't need to be working right now.
No, I am supported, but I don't particularly want to be in the position of like, I want to be able to do it for myself. So that's kind of an issue.
Great.
But really what you were speaking to with the Neptune, that was really dead on. Because one of the things, like, Saturn just got through transiting over my moon and Neptune and South Node. Yeah. Like now, it just went into my 12th house. Yeah. So it's kind of like what started with my Saturn return. It kind of like, it's just like the same lessons. I've just been kind of progressing and building and building and building. So for me, it was really hitting on those boundary issues for me again. And I would say that the biggest challenge that I had was just utter confusion around my truth and believing in myself or doubting myself, and trying to establish like, okay, like, am I just like, where's this coming from? Like, like, because the relationship that I was in at the time, it was very kind of like the whole classic, narcissist kind of codependent thing, playing out. And so for me, it was really mentally confusing. And it was like coming from the place of like intuition. It was like, do I trust myself? Is this what I see happening? And then you throw in the Libra and it's like, oh, well, I want to be sure, I want to be fair. And then you're like trying to understand the projections of like, is this actually coming from me or from the other person? And if so, with me, I want to own, what's coming from within inside of me and actually doing my own work.
Thank you for sharing that. I just really want to speak for everyone. This moon on the South Node of Neptune, it's really clear, Regina, that in past life there's been like 11th house can often speak to brainwashing, where we get lost in some kind of movement, in some kind of group collective belief system, Sagittarius in this case. You were speaking about boundaries and like knowing that you exist, you have your own independent. The trauma of Moon, Neptune, 11th house with your South Node there speaks to really powerful past life experiences where there was complete dissociation from your own being, from your own existence. So the astral plane corresponds to the 11th house. You've learned to survive. You've learned to basically function, but kind of up here, staying up here the whole time.
Yes.
The experience of trauma and persecution and also great loss is what would create that. So right now is Saturn moving through your 12th house. It's obviously a time where all these things are unraveling. Saturn's actually still entering your 12th house. I mean, it's going to be in your 12th house for a good couple of years still.
Right.
It's the time of continuing to unravel and dissolve a lot of the boundaries and the barriers that have been established within your consciousness that have actually been perpetuating the disconnect, the dissociation. Maurice Fernandez once put up quote on the Saturn course that we're teaching right now, and he put a cartoon, and basically this Neptune glyph walked into an office, and Saturn was the doctor, or like the psychiatrist, and Neptune said, "Doctor, there's a thing following me around wherever I go," and the doctor said, "That's your body."
Yeah, okay, totally.
So yeah, I mean, I respect, and I honor the process that you're in right now. Like, you are where you need to be, and receiving the support as well. It's clear that in your own timing, you will be coming out, and you have a lot to share. Work that you're doing on what's interesting with your 10th house is ultimately you're not needing to be defined by any
Right.
particular paradigm or construct. You are creating your own reality. You get to follow your intuition. You can do whatever you want with yourself and your family. There's just permission for you to kind of think creatively.
Right. And see, like, that's part of like the thing is it's almost like I feel like what I'm struggling with that is that I don't really have any particular desire.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, no, that's I just honor that, and I get that. There's literally nothing to do there but to explore that very space. Because as you mentioned,
Okay, I see.
there's no desire, but then you're also noticing there's fears. There's fears that come up
Right.
around
Right.
it's juicy. There's a lot of material there, and to play it out. When I see your Mercury, your Mars with Beth as well, ruling your North Node in the 5th house, there's a writer, right? Obviously, you have a lot to write. You have a lot to share. You have a lot of ideas. There's a lot of energy there that at any point can come on board. I don't want to be the one to say you should go and try to make something happen, but continue this place that you're in. And
Yeah, I used to write.
yeah, I mean, obviously your chart's really clear in the fact of there being avid writing.
Yeah.
That will come in its right timing. Have you ever thought of writing a children's book?
Actually, I have thought about writing a children's book.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I definitely have. I've actually, and one of the things that I do find, I guess that I can't say that I don't have any desires, obviously, but all of the old way of operating is no longer in consciousness for me. I do quite thoroughly enjoy EA and learning in that particular way, and I also enjoy like working with children, and in particular, like, even though I don't really have a job, outside of the home. See, like, my son was diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety issues, and other things. So I find myself working with EA a lot and like his own chart. And then, that even threw up an interest for me, is that I really think that it would be a beautiful thing to empower, children from such a young age. Yeah, so that was kind of a direction for me that I wanted to be able to, like, I think that it's a beautiful thing to want to empower them, and like, knowledge is power to me, and we're just really just working with him from that space already.
Cool. Great.
Yeah, and he loves it. Like, he loves it. He's South Node in Leo in the 12th, and North Node in Aquarius and the 6th, and then my 7-month, this the same, but they're just opposite. He's South Node in Aquarius in the 12th, and then North Node Leo in the 6th.
Oh,
so
cool.
Same houses. So yeah.
Good. One other thought that just comes to mind to share is, because there's an orientation now for you really coming into your body. So when I speak about body, I'm looking at the moon actually, which is I exist, moon, me.
Okay.
And it's your identity, because Saturn in the 11th can do really well as a spirit guide. It can really do well as a monk in the mountains, separate from the world, or in a community that's apart from the world. Like 11th house Sag is very much in the upper spheres. So a part of coming into desire and passion and sort of a sensing and intuition of your own path, it opens up as you land more. And since there's been kind of this healing of trauma, it's coming up now, which means it's in process of being healed. One thing that I would really suggest is actually giving yourself permission to give even more attention to whatever relaxes and calms your nervous system. So you can actually hold deeper space for yourself to feel, to connect, to breathe, to feel nurtured and at home.
Yeah.
Things like meditation tanks and things like that, that really relaxes your whole being.
Yeah, that resonates because here lately, I really have just been thinking about my relationship to the body in particular, and really just wanting to ground in the sense of my body.
Yeah.
And so with you mentioning the disassociation and everything, like, okay, I'm like, okay, that's the link. I get it now.
Okay.
It makes more sense. Yeah, definitely.
Great. All right. Thank you, Regina.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Good. Who's next? If anyone.
Oh, hi, Ari. It's Kim.
Hi, Kimberly.
Hello.
Kim.
There we go. Yeah, Kimberly. Hi. Hi there. There we go. So my question is around career, my career. It's kind of been like a major theme for my life, a major thorn in my life. I've been searching, like I'm 51 now, and I've been searching for like fulfillment in my career or vocation. I've had so many different jobs, so many different careers, like journalism and insurance, something boring like that. Yoga teacher, I can't even remember, marketing specialist, so many jobs, so much education. And I keep leaving jobs and careers because I can't find whatever it is that gives me fulfillment. And I keep being stuck in these patterns where I get into jobs. Every time I try to take a leap into something that I feel resonates with me, like say yoga or metaphysics or counseling, it makes me more miserable. And then I jump back into these jobs of working in an office, and they suck the life out of me. They suck the joy out of me. And I wonder where I should go career-wise. I feel like maybe I feel like I have this strong urge inside of me. I know some people can just go to a job, that's okay, and that's what they do, like my sisters. But for me, I feel like this strong pull to do something that's meaningful and purposeful. And I feel so much of a lack of joy in my life because I'm not doing anything that I enjoy for a living.
Wow. Great. Thank you for sharing. Let me tune into this. Okay. I appreciate this feeling of this like real sincerity and honesty in your share and your expression. And that's exactly where I want to go, because the very essence of this path is rooted and grounded in authenticity and sincerity and honesty. It's actually being honest about yourself, being truthful about yourself, and noticing how there's a gravity, there's an orientation towards pressuring yourself to define your life according to your work, to your job. It's an underlying sense of, I have to be something. And yet, this whole movement for you in this lifetime is about liberating yourself from the pressure and really connecting to the most tender, luscious place inside of you and having fun, feeling the adventure and the journey and the excitement of life, and this feeling of abundance, this feeling of I have a lot of what I need, and I love my relationships. I love my connections. It's the vibration of I'm really embodied and I'm really enjoying my life. So you have Venus ruling the North Node, Taurus, fourth house, North Node, which is emotional, self-reliant, grounded, content within yourself. Venus in 11th house in Aquarius is liberating yourself to follow your intuition, a value system, a connection to your body that is free and exciting and adventurous, undefined, untainted. Squaring that moon in the second house in Pisces, it's really this learning for you in cultivating and that moon is ruled by Neptune right there on your south node in the 10th house. So it's this learning for you in creating a non-conditional framework for living, where enjoyment and pleasure and peace comes from the meaningfulness of loving your life, of song, of adventure, of creativity, of embodiment. I know that there's that question, but what do I do? What do I do? Like, what's my job? And how all the practical worldly questions that want to come in there. And you have Saturn as well in the second house in Pisces retrograde. How am I going to make money? There's like that very worldly. What's that?
That's a big one, because I've been up and down with my finances, because I'll leave a job because when it's just too much, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
I leave without a safety net, and so I've had a lot of financial difficulty too.
Exactly. And that it's retrograde, it's conjunct Chiron, and it trines all that stuff in the 10th house. And so it's easy for you to make money, right? But that sense of meaninglessness and emptiness. So there's a temptation to want to go into, how do I do this? How am I going to figure out this whole money thing?
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually becoming self-aware that there is a conditioned pattern for your mind to fall into a way of thinking that orients from this place of effort and right and wrong. That there must be a right way for me to do this. There must be something that I need to do in order to have what I need. And that very orientation usurps, it takes over, it takes the space of enjoying yourself, of actually enjoying what you have, being in relationship to how spirit manifests and forms within physical human experience. It's enjoying the resources you have. It's enjoying the money you have, enjoying the home you have, and letting yourself be defined by the emptiness that the content and the form is holding space for, as opposed to being obsessed with the form. It's like the Tao Te Ching says, it's the emptiness of a building that is the purpose of the building, the space inside of it, or it's the emptiness, the space inside of the pottery that serves the purpose of the pottery itself. And when you become so identified with the pottery or with the building, but you forget to inhabit the form inside of it, what this is all about for you is this learning of, you can be honest with yourself. You don't have to fit yourself into a paradigm. So you have Jupiter and Juno also squaring the nodes in Leo in your 7th house. And a big part of this, there are two dynamics, but one side of it is letting go of the pressure that you need to somehow make yourself believable, that you somehow have to prove yourself, or people have to understand you, that there's a need that you have to make your own truth, your own who you really are, something that fits into the world as it is. It's actually about being completely honest with yourself about your own desires, about your own needs, and developing self-sufficiency, not worrying about rejection or punishment or exclusion, or being rejected, not being understood, not being appreciated, not being seen. Because the other piece of this is where it's almost like a past life as a queen or something like that, where maybe you demanded that people respected you, and so you're overly identified with getting that attention and that affection from the outside. There's a letting go of that and just being honest and authentic about yourself. So you're unraveling where so much of your identity has been oriented towards, I have to be something more than I am. And if not, I'm not going to be accepted. 7th house. I'm not going to be acceptable. I'm not going to be believed. Giving yourself that space to really respect and honor yourself and be self-sufficient, be self-contained. And it doesn't mean being lazy. It doesn't mean just letting go and doing nothing, but it means actually following your bliss. So what I would say for you is you're a soul worker. And it's very natural, authentic for you to be doing work where it's not so much about the work you're doing, but it's the meaning of it. With that Jupiter, it's actually really necessary for you to be sharing the abundance of love that you have with other people. Because basically that's a part of you that when you get beyond the karma of sensitivity to how you might be seen or judged, on the other end of that is a great ability to see the beauty and the majesty of other people. Jupiter and Leo in the 7th. And to be reflecting that, to be sharing that with them is a great gift that you have. And then the sun rules that in the 11th house. So things like astrology, but also just working with trauma, helping people liberate themselves, really just by you listening. Jupiter in the 7th, that feels like enough. I'll stop there and I'll let you speak to this.
Yeah. There was a lot said, so I'm trying to remember. Some of it, like, I don't feel like I do pressure myself. I don't feel like I'm trying to be seen or that I have to be something. I really have always been moving toward what makes me feel good or happy or purposeful. And that's what I haven't found.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, I need to be this or that or something.
Well, let me offer this perspective for you. What would you say is the deeper reason for why you've tended to get involved in jobs and committing yourself to things that in the end loses its juice?
Money. Yeah. And I think I've been conditioned from the family I come up with in that you get a job, you make money, and who cares what the hell your job is. And for me, that's never been that for me. So I've quit jobs so many times, like I said. Of course, my family, meaning my sisters, I don't have my own family. Because I can't find that meaning and joy in it. And when I do try something, like I said, I tried yoga. I love yoga. I tried addiction counseling.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff was scary for me because I was seen and I do have a lot of insecurity.
Right.
Thank you, probably to
and that's a big
Saturn in the 2nd.
Well, that's that Jupiter and Leo. That's a big part of it relative to that 10th house. Mm. What I would offer to you is there's been a tendency to orient towards finding the thing. And
yeah,
a part of you says, this is acceptable. I mean, this is a thing that I can fit into. Here's my intuition. Tell me a little bit about your father and what kind of work he did and just things like that.
My father didn't live with us. Like my mom and dad got divorced when I was 5. So I wasn't connected to him at all, really. Okay. Yeah, and he was an alcoholic and he died from alcoholism years ago. Yeah, when he was like 50 or something.
Okay.
So not a close relationship with him.
Okay, thank you. And for everyone, that Neptune in the 10th house very often corresponds to absence of father. But also Jupiter in Leo, relative to that 10th house, is also a father that went away. Jupiter traveling, Leo father. I would just offer that there's something to explore for you when it comes to you listening to yourself and not trying to fit into what you know other people think is good, to what is acceptable. And I honor what you said, that you don't have that thing with that Jupiter and Leo in the 7th house of really giving that approval to yourself. I don't have to find something that is already accepted, because basically you're looking at the world on the outside, finding something to fit into.
Right.
But the whole shift here is you have truth, you have wisdom, you have understanding, and you don't have to find an ism or a construct or a box to fit it into. You get to make the box with your love, with your devotion, with your presence. So this is about you trusting your own intuition and being the parent to yourself that's listening to the child that has so much to give but doesn't know what to do about it. So that parent says, well, let me hold your hand And I'm going to help you find a way to share your gifts so that you're really touching people's lives and you're honest about yourself. You're not pretending to be something that you're not just because you need to make money. I'm going to find a way for you to have so much fun really serving, but to really be good, connected to yourself. This is a really exciting path for you because it's just about you validating and giving attention to your deep desire to give and love and serve. And that Neptune in the 10th house ultimately corresponds to an inherent desire to do good, an inherent desire to structure yourself within time and space in a way that has meaning and value to the world, not martyring yourself, but actually filling your earthly existence with meaning. Otherwise it loses meaning. It's empty, it's void. So the Saturn, Pisces, second house, like the survival and all those things, it comes together when you begin defining your reality, not according to what's the thing that will make me money, but rather, what is this path that I feel in my inspiration, in my heart, in my loving heart, that will allow me to serve, and through that, I'll have all that I need taken care of. Pisces says trust. Saturn says work on yourself. Here it's working on how you think about survival, orienting it towards inspiration, practicing a way of moving forward from your inspiration, from your truth, and not letting materialism actually replace spirituality, letting them come together. Does that make sense for you?
Yes, but I'm wondering, like, are you saying, because career has been so much of my focus on life, or vocation, whatever you want to call it, finding something that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, because I'm starting to think about my death at this point and thinking, wow, most of my life has been pretty, for me, I haven't been happy. Do you think that I should take the focus so much off of finding that vocation?
Yeah. You can do that. I mean, it's not going to go away, but don't try to find the vocation. Find your inspiration. Find the Leo child that wants to play, that loves seeing and being seen, that loves intimacy. Because this is all about intimacy in many ways for you.
And that has not been in my life for a long time either.
I would suggest there are these really delicate, vulnerable parts of you that want to come out, that maybe have been sensitive to that as well. And you get to allow more of you to be seen, more of you to be met through this whole process, and play. You get to play. That's the whole point. Lots of play. And I don't know what this will look like, right? I mean, I obviously, like the guy, the counselor, the intuitive, the soul worker, you're clearly oriented towards that. But also, are you a musician? Do you sing?
No, I'm horrible at singing, but no.
All right, well, I see that second house, and it makes me wonder. That's just saying.
Yeah.
I wonder what like embodiment and art and dance and things like that might want to come through for you.
Yeah, and I find like Kundalini yoga, it has become a passion for me of late. So, you know, that movement. And I've always been into fitness my whole life. So there is a big fitness piece and spirituality and metaphysics. I already know what I like. But yeah. I feel like maybe I've had a lack of intimate relationship for, well, too long. I don't even want to say. I have a lack of close friendships. And then this lack in my career life. I feel like maybe they're somewhere all tied together.
Yeah, and I would say that the piece that brings it all together is that North Node, Taurus in the first house, emotional self-intimacy. And that brings in that Jupiter, which squares the nodes, which is fun, playful intimacy, honesty, sharing, being seen. And the ruler of that North Node, Sag in the 11th house, which is community and also freedom, living your life and sharing good friendship with others. That North Node is not to become polarized where then you're forgetting about work and the need to make money, but it's about you shifting your orientation. So embodiment and enjoyment is the ground from which you think about all the other stuff. That's the practice. You know, it's like enjoying yourself, really enjoying your life.
Well, I'm going for a big trip to Thailand.
Oh, cool.
And yeah,
great. love
And I
that.
haven't done anything like that before.
Good. That's the point. There we go. And learn I'm just making this up, but heck, like learn Thai massage and then like offer it to people.
Yeah.
Because that's fun. It's connection. It's bodies, right? Fourth house, Taurus, connection, Jupiter. Like there's just so much there for you. It's actually there's no lack of ways for you to be doing work in the world that you love, that's bringing in money. It's just orienting from inspiration and fun.
Okay.
And you'll see what opens up.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Kimberly,
Yes.
this is Marty.
Hi, Marty.
Hi, I agree with Ari. Everything in your chart brings me back to that Venus in Sagittarius in the 11th house.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with him more that you need to immerse yourself in that which brings you complete and utter bliss and ecstasy and take it from there.
All right. Thank you. Kundalini yoga, I think, is the way for me.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
What I sense can be happening right now in a very beautiful way when the mind can understand that there's a great potential for you to have a divine marriage within yourself, where your masculine nature can come into your feminine essence and you can truly enjoy simply being you in your body.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That was lovely. Thank you.
May I share one comment about this too?
Kim, you're attracting community. Look at that. Look at your Venus in the 11th house. Everyone wants to give to you and play with you.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, go for it, Cameron or James. Yeah.
Well, I was actually, thinking about this yesterday and today because I have Venus opposite Pluto. And what I realized in all of these things that I've come to is that one of the powerful things that you can do to change everything is to shift the way that you look at everything you've been looking, because you might look at, like, for example, Venus opposite Pluto as, like, the damsel in distress, and Pluto as the dragon or the monster. But, what if you started looking at it like, the idea of, Venus is the gold and Pluto is the dragon? Then it's like, oh yeah, so it's like, hey, whatever it is that I want, it wants me. So look at everything in your life as something that is compatible with you in a very, like, juicy, like, Venus way. And perhaps that will allow you to shift the way that you've been thinking about it, and in effect allow you to merge with the situation rather than feeling like you're being hunted by it or destroyed by it in some way.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
So not to put too much attention onto you, Kim, I'll speak very generically, but when we look at the Taurus archetype in the chart, especially if it's a North Node thing or if it's just really speaking to this evolutionary direction, it's the simplest thing because it's actually about the body. It's about this present moment. I have a lot of that in my chart. I have a strong second house. And something that I'm finding is the answer is an orientation towards grace, where the mind wants to go into, like, the hows and the whats, but it's actually, if we look at any biological creature, because Taurus is biology, it's total biology, there's this sensuality to everything in creation. It moves as if it's in its body. Like, you don't see animals getting stuck or confused about their physical existence. So there's something very, very simple, very beautiful and poetic in just the simpleness of the Taurus energy. So everyone, I think this is probably ending time for our meeting today. Thank you all so much for sharing this. Please.
I just want to make one comment to you, Kimberly. I have a Taurus moon and a Taurus Venus, and I understand it deeply, fully. You can call me, contact me, and I can share with you if you like.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ari.
No worries. I love the community. Yeah.
Same here. I have Venus.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I love you,
Great, much
Ari. I
love.
love everybody.
Be with you.
Woo.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Thanks,
Blessings.
everyone.
All right, blessings, yeah.
Right.
See you next time, Ari Moshe. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.